Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Fiio K11 R2R, and these are my Honest Audiophile Impressions. I want to thank Fiio for sending over the K11 R2R for a review. Greatly appreciate it. Fiio Audio, you rock. Alright, so the Fiio K11 R2R, this will set you back $160 from your bank account, and it is a R2R DAC amp. It is a sibling to the K11 that I reviewed many months ago on the channel, and the similarities are very much obvious and the differences are also obvious. The K11 R2R comes in a little gray box. You get a picture, some branding, and we have a high-res sticker. It's got to sound good. Also, you have a differentiation of R2R from the original. Pretty similar unboxing experience, so not really going to show you any of the internal for the box. A couple things of note that you do get. You get a USB to USB-C cable. It's kind of stiff and doesn't really lose its swervy curvies. And then also you get a power supply. Very, very short cord, and then a little bit longer going into the device, but not anything spectacular. It is pretty short, so make sure you're close to your wall. And then you get a 1/4 inch adapter. All right. Main attraction, the K11 R2R. Now it looks very, very similar to the original. Only difference is it says R2R here on the front. Just like the original, you can get it in different colors, and I chose black so I could differentiate between the two easier. On the front, you have your multifunction volume knob, and then your 1-inch display, and then a 4.4 and 1/4 inch headphone outputs. On the back side, you have your power in. You have your USB-C in, optical in, coax in and out, and RCA outputs. The R2R K11 is a Fiio developed fully differential true 24-bit resistor array. It has 192 resistors for the R2R. The main control chip is a GD32F303RET6, if that means anything to you. It does have an dual amp chips of SGM8262, and then it has the capabilities for input of USB-C, coax, and optical. And as mentioned, the outputs are your single-ended 1/4 inch, balanced 4.4 headphone outs, and then your RCA and coax. The single-ended headphone is capable of doing a maximum of 460 milliwatts at 32 ohms per channel. And on balanced 4.4, you're capable of doing 1300 milliwatts per channel at 32 ohms. The line out is also fixed or variable, which is a nice feature that the original only had fixed. The DAC, or the PCM, the K11 R2R is capable of doing 32,384 DSD 256. That's with USB, and then with coax you're able to do 24,192, and on optical you can do 24,96. It does also have oversampling and non-oversampling. It does not have any filters. Also, another thing that it does not have is Bluetooth, but the original also did not have Bluetooth. One thing that they both have is RGB lights. So where it says Fiio on the front, R2R, it will be able to change different colors and different patterns, however you want to do it. It's a nice feature that Fiio offers that's different than pretty much anything else in its price point, and just kind of adds a little extra flair to the device. It makes it feel special and unique. I kind of like it, and I change the colors around and play with it. It's kind of cool. It is very small, 147 by 133 by 32.3 millimeters, and it weighs 420 grams. Extremely small, fits in the hand, and it's built just like the original. And they look extremely similar. As mentioned, I got black so I could differentiate between the two while they were on my desk. And you have that little rubber pad that just kind of seals everything, and this thing does not move around. It's heavy enough that when you plug in cables and stuff, it's not flopping and moving. It's very well balanced in its weight, and the design of it is attractive, and it feels durable, and there's no sharp edges in my experience. I like the layout. One little frustration that I wish that Fiio would have done is provide a remote of some sort, as you do have to use the multifunction button. Pressing and holding it powers it on. In order to turn it off, you have to hold it and let it cycle through the menu, and then it'll say off and it'll shut down. To get into the menu, just hold it until you get into the menus, and then rotate till you get to your option. Clicking on the option will allow you to change your setting and the option, and then clicking it will set whatever option you choose. It's kind of clunky, and it doesn't make it so that it's easy to swap from oversampling to non-oversampling. I do wish that there was just a button that would change it real quick, but unfortunately you have to go into the menu. Same thing with changing gains. This does have an adaptive impedance gain, low, medium, and high, which works very well, but again, you have to go into the menu to change it. Line out, same thing, pre and line out, you have to go in and select. Nice thing is the headphone out and line out and pre out are all separate, so you cannot use them simultaneously. And I found that the headphone output and the line out sounded similar. There was not any real differences there. I wasn't able to discern any significant differences that stood out to my ears. The power output is quite impressive, with 1300 milliwatts per channel on high gain. On balanced, it will push most headphones and IEMs. IEMs I had no problems, just like the original. The R2R works very well with IEMs, and it was a easy use. Didn't really have any that hissed. Every now and then some of the super sensitive IEMs exhibited a little bit of hissing when used with it, but for the most part everything played very, very well. Headphone wise, it'll drive most of the headphones. Some of the harder to drive planars and really hard to drive dynamics that are over 300 ohms, you could definitely tell you needed more source or more power. And so using the K11 R2R as a DAC worked out very well, plugging it into an external amplifier. But for the most part, you can plug and play pretty much any headphone and it'll drive it. It's not going to be the best amplifier that you're ever going to hear, but it is very listenable, and it's not a terrible sounding amp, especially for an integrated. The Fiio K11 R2R, how does it sound? So if you're looking for something that's drastically different from the original, you're not really going to get that. The original is a very neutral, analytical leaning tune, and the R2R is going to add a little bit of extra warmth, a little bit more body, and just give you a little bit more musicality. But also at the same time, you're going to lose just a little bit of the bite, the edge, and the crispness, and that analytical lean that the original provides. The R2R is going to make things sound more pleasurable, a little bit rounded, a little bit soft up top, and it's just going to be a very pleasurable and engaging and a fun listen. Whereas the original has a more neutral tune and a very analytical tune, and it's going to nitpick the music apart. Whereas the R2R is going to add in this little warmth and a little lushness, body weight. Bass is going to drive home. There's nice impact and slam. It extends nicely into the sub bass, and there's a little bit more presence there than there is on the original. Mid bass has nice punch, nice slam, good kick, and then upper bass is well controlled but has a little bit of warmth and bleeds softly into the lower mids region. The lower mids have a nice fullness to them, good note weight throughout, and overall the mids have this connection with the music, and you have a very emotional side of things, and it's not quite as spaced out, not quite as airy as the original. It has a little bit more of a cozy, comfy feel to things, very good depth and layering, and the upper mids are more controlled, not quite as intense and quite as defined and refined as they are on the original. And then the treble, as mentioned, is a little bit more softer, a little bit more rounded, a little bit more smooth sounding. Even though it has good air and space, it just presents it in a more pleasurable listen. Tone and timbre is very natural on the R2R. I find it to be very engaging and very realistic sounding, reproducing instruments very well. Not quite as neutral as the original. Soundstage of the R2R is nice and wide. You have good depth and nice layering, but at the same time, it's a very immersive sound, whereas the original has a little bit more air, a little bit more space, and a little bit more definition and isolation of instruments. The R2R has a good presence when it comes to placing things and tracking things across the stage, but the original is a little bit more precise and a little bit more pinpoint, whereas the R2R is a little bit more immersive, and you can tell where things are coming from, but it's in this neighborhood, it's over here. But you can definitely tell when things move across the stage, and it also does a good job of depth and layering, even though it's not quite as refined, defined, and focused as the original. Detail retrieval and resolution is very good, especially for its price point, and you're not going to miss anything in the music. But with the original, you were able to hear things that you didn't always hear before, and it might have brought out some new information, and it is a little bit better resolving. I find that the original is a little bit more analytical leaning than the R2R. So overall, I like the Fiio K11 R2R. It's a different sound signature than the original, but not enough to be like, wow, this is completely different sounding. They have a lot of similarities. The R2R just adds in a little bit more a musicality side of things and removes that slight bite and edge and crispiness and analytical lean, and replaces it with a little bit more rounded, musical, smooth, lush type of sound signature that is subtle but yet noticeable. The R2R does have the ability to go from oversampling to non-oversampling, and there is a significant difference. So the non-oversampling is just straight up how the music sounds coming through the R2R ladder DAC, and then oversampling boosts things up and can go up into the maximum side on PCM up to 32-bit 384 and a higher DSD 256, and it will kind of enhance things on oversampling and turn it slightly more to the neutral side of things, but it doesn't quite get to the point of the original. It still has that little bit of warmth and a little bit of a fullness to the sound, but it's not quite as lush and as pleasurable sounding as the non-oversampling. And I preferred it on non-oversampling. It just sounded more pleasurable, more fun, and just more relaxed and engaging and immersive. Whereas on the oversampling, it just kind of sounded a little like it was forcing it to sound cleaner. It didn't quite sound authentic in its presentation of trying to be realistic, if that makes sense. I found that the original does a better job of not sounding as digital sounding as the oversampling does on the R2R. So if you're going to use the R2R, I definitely would use it in the no oversampling or NOS setting. The K11 R2R does work very well as a DAC. You can connect it to external amps if you need that extra little bit of power. and I found that it sounds just as good as it does out of the headphone amp on external amplifiers. And external amplifiers that I did use it with were the Mytek Liberty THX AAA HPA, the Drop SMSL HO150X, and several others, and I truly did enjoy it on all. So it works just as good with that. It also works with speakers. I connected it with the Fosse Audio V3 monos and ran it that way through the pre-out. Sounded fantastic. And using it with the Martin Logan's Motion 15s, I really did enjoy that sound as well. So you can use the K11 R2R in a plethora of different ways, and it works very well. Also works very well with gaming. If you take your PlayStation PS5, plug that in here to the optical, and use it with speakers or headphones, and it works fantastic and sounds great, especially with that immersive soundstage. So when it comes to the Fiio K11, the original or the R2R, and it comes down to preference. And for me, I prefer the original slightly more than the R2R. Now, I like the R2R. It's very engaging listening, very musical, and very smooth sounding. But I'm kind of a neutral analytical junkie, and I prefer the little slightly more clinical leaning tune of the original. You might like the R2R better. I highly recommend both. And in fact, if you can afford it and you want a little taste of what R2R sounds like, and you still want that clinical sound, also get both. They both sound fantastic, and they both work great. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information on there regarding how you can contact channel, follow channel, support channel. Speaking of supporting channel, I want to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide to the channel. It is much appreciated. Also, I want to thank those who give one-time gifts. That also is much appreciated. You can support the channel through various ways: one-time gifts, PayPal, Venmo, and YouTube, or through monthly subscriptions with Patreon and YouTube memberships. With the monthly subscriptions, you can get access to videos early and also other benefits. So check out the links. If you're interested in supporting the channel, it'd be greatly appreciated. Also down below, there's all kinds of other information, gear recommendations, music recommendations, and gear rankings, and all kinds of things. So check out the links down below. And lastly, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.